quickly turn to the person next to you, just tell them, what would you like to learn in the next 60 minutes? Okay. What are you open to those sort of things? So whatever it is, you can create those different pre-frames. So the context will be different. It might be a harder audience, but you should be, you would be emceed, so the MC should give you credibility. They should tell the audience why you're there, why you've been invited there, what you're going to share with them. So if that's a good MC that's introduced you well, then the audience will probably want to listen to what you have to say. Then you're going to establish your credibility quickly as well. You acknowledge, respect them. Then that's where the pre-frames come in. You can have a cold audience that doesn't really want to listen to you, but you do a good pre-frame, you'll have their interest. So you've thought about your pre-frames before you're there anyhow, so you know what they are. Okay, so 2 or 3 good pre-frames. You tell them right up front why they should listen to you. And you say, look, I've got a lot I want to share, but I only have a short time with you, so I want to give you as much as I can, but here's what I need from you. I know you've had a really big day, you've learned from so many amazing speakers today, and it's late at night. However, I want to challenge you to go to the next level. I believe sincerely that if you're open-minded and you're absolutely committed and want to learn more in the next 60 minutes, you can learn an idea or two that could potentially transform your life. Or even only improves on a small scale. Is that worth it? So you challenge them pre-frame. All of a sudden, they're like, yeah, okay. So you told them what they're going to get, and then you've asked them, this is what I need from you to be able to help you get what the outcome is. Okay? Is it making sense? Yeah?
Hi, yep. Jamie. How do you maintain regular contact with the audience so that you don't lose them or such as things like that? Thanks.
Yeah, how do you keep the audience enthralled or engaged and things like that? So the simplest way to do that is, one, if you're passionate about something and explaining that, people will respond to that. You've pre-framed them well, they're open to want to listen. You've challenged them, you've acknowledged them, so you'll set the platform for people to listen. Then to maintain that is what you do. The most effective thing is what we talked about, is that continued interaction. Teach for 20, 30 minutes, then get them, here, why don't you turn to the person next to you, okay? Or break into groups of 3 or 4, okay, and share amongst each other, whatever you want to do. But easily turn the person next to you and just teach one person, person A and person B. Person B will go first. You teach what you've just learnt in the last 20 minutes. Okay. Then person A goes second, you teach what you've just learnt. Then I'll open up for questions. Or you might say, I'm going to do questions at the end. If it's a short presentation, you probably keep the questions to the end. In some presentations, you won't do any questions. You can say, you know, we don't have time for questions, but here's what I do. I'm going to stick around at the end of the presentation. Feel free to come speak to me at the back of the room. I'll be happy to answer questions one-on-one. So, you know, and that way you control. Because what will happen in some of your audiences, people put their hands up throughout the thing and they'll want to ask a question. Don't just take a question. Otherwise, then everyone will do that, and then your presentation is going to be continually interrupted. Just acknowledge them, say, you know, I know some of you got some questions. What I'm going to do is, here, I want you to turn to the person next to you, teach us, and then I'll take some questions. Or I'm going to take some questions right at the end, or we're not going to have time for questions today. Come see me at the end. I'll stick around as long as I can and answer one-on-one. People respect that. Okay, especially when you're an amateur speaker, you don't want people interrupting you with your questions because you'll lose the power. So that's the way you handle that. Okay. So that interaction, it's these distinctions are critical little things. You miss one of them, and you'll look at your feedback, and you'll come back and go, all I want you to do is come back to these 10 steps. And when you do a presentation, coach yourself, come back and go, aha, I did this, this, and this. Well done, that worked well. I forgot the interaction. I had the audience, but then I tried to give them an hour's worth of information and knowledge without breaking it up every 15, 20, 30 minutes. And I've just missed that simple interaction. Then you'll go back next time, you'll do that. And then it'll become a habit, and you become unconscious, competent at delivering. And then you'll be a famous speaker around the world, and we'll hear from you, and we may hire you at 21st Century. Making sense? Any other questions? Yeah, down to Stephen, is it? Yeah.
Jamie, this is more an observation than a question, but imagine if teachers learnt this and every hour of education you had as a student, the class was approached like this, and how much more enjoyable education would be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a very good point. It's something that I've thought about for some time. But you think about it, teachers are educators, but at university, I've never went to university to be a teacher, but I don't believe there's even one iota of public speaking in teaching. which is just, teachers are ill-equipped with the skills, and therefore a school system is very ill-equipped to teach anything, which, you could do that. It's not hard for anyone to, an educator, even if they did this 3-hour seminar as part of a 3-year, in part of the 3-year university, that would be so valuable. It's not hard to learn. Certainly. They are educators, but they're not trained to educate. And that's why school is a very ineffective way for people to learn. And as a result, many people leave school feeling they have a negative anchor to learning. When real learning usually begins when you leave school. I think it's such a waste, 12 years at school. People could be empowered so much more. And obviously that's been my mission for many years, is to try and change that. And bit by bit, the culture is changing. People are demanding more out of education, but it's a very slow process. So, any other questions? Who's more excited already about being a public speaker? So here's the process that will take you. We've been teaching you theory today, a very good blueprint. The actual reality will come is that taking action. Who's already in their career or etc. already doing some presentations? Who's already doing some? Okay, so this is far more beneficial for you. It's easier for you because you're already doing some, so you can take this and just fine tune and improve what you're doing, because you got the practice. If you've never presented before, then there's that fear factor that you need to get through. So the quicker the better. So what I've done to create speakers for people that have knowledge or expertise and wanted them to be able to impart that to people through 21st century, etc. One thing we'll often do is one way to break a speaker in is to interview them. So, for instance, we're looking at bringing Richard Branson out to have him as a speaker at some of our seminars next year. And I can't promise that, but we're working on that. Now, Richard, even though for 30 years he's been a great PR man, building the Virgin brand, he's not a fantastic speaker. He's quite shy and quite awkward, despite the fact he's done this for 30 years. So to extract value out of Richard, the best way to do that, what we probably do, is put him on stage and interview him. So when you ask him a question, he doesn't have to think. He doesn't have to do a structured hour presentation, because he doesn't like speaking that much. He doesn't speak that often because he knows he's not that good at it. But if you can ask him a question that the audience would want to know anyhow, then away people go. They can just talk off the top of the head, this, that, and etc. All of a sudden, they're public speaking. And that's how we've done that to train many speakers, is interview them. Put them on stage with a professional MC, and just ask them questions, and before you know it, they're actually doing a seminar. They haven't had to worry about the fear, etc. So that's a very effective way to break in a speaker, or you've been invited to speak somewhere. Do it on an interview basis. Get the questions pre-arranged up front and be interviewed, and then you know what the question is going to be anyhow, and then you can just answer the questions. And takes all the pressure off. And then before you know it, you'll be off on a tangent teaching what you do. You're passionate about something, and you're actually public speaking very well. And the fear factor's disappeared. Who thinks that might be a good idea? Okay, that's one way we found very effective. The other way is just to practice. Mentally rehearse. Practice in front of your family, or sometimes that can be hard. Practice in front of fake people, okay? Put some pillows up there on the lounge, etc. Put some faces on them and speak to them. See if you can inspire them. If you inspire a lounge or a pillow, then you've got a future. So, to make sense, so it's all about practice. So certainly mentally creating a presentation and going through these 10 steps, incorporating that into your presentation, and then practicing going through it, all of a sudden it's like, much easier. And then once you've got the system, away you go. Once you've learned something, it's yours forever. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. We're looking at creating a program. I'll mention this to you now. If it's of some interest to you, just put an expression of interest in. I don't want you enrolling into this yet because we haven't decided when and if we will do it. But we are looking at creating a 21st century speaking school, which would be a 3-day program we'd look at doing next year. Subject to how many people want to actually participate in that. The difference to today would obviously be today, but in more depth. So more so, what I haven't covered here today, which I just mentioned very briefly, is also if you want to be a public speaker and develop that as a career, there's certain models to go about doing that. You want to jot this down very quickly. One model is, if you're a public speaker, is they get paid, you can become a keynote speaker. Keynote speakers get paid maybe $5,000, $10,000 upwards for speaking for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, etc. And there's many keynote speakers out there. Donald Trump, for instance, is reported to be the highest paid keynote speaker in the world. That's because he gets paid and doesn't speak. Just kidding. So he gets paid like $1.5 million to speak for 90 minutes. Okay, so people can get paid a large amount of money. Bill Clinton gets paid a large amount of money to speak. So it depends on the field, etc. They can get paid, a small amount of money, $5,000 all the way up for a small period of time of speaking. So that is one model of being a keynote speaker. And many people think that's the be-all and end-all. When you think of someone earns $1.5 million as an upfront fee for speaking, then that's a lot of money. Yet the people that are keynote speakers aren't the ones that earn the most money. Okay, the ones that earn the most money are ones that are not keynote speakers, aren't taking a fee to speak up front. They're the ones that actually have a product or service and educate and then sell a product or service at the end. They are the highest paid speakers if they're effective at what they do. So imagine if you're an employee versus being self-employed. Employee takes a guaranteed salary. The employer or entrepreneur doesn't have that guarantee, but if they perform, they make a much larger income. So in the speaking world, there's two types of speaker. The keynote speaker is like the employee mentality. They need a guaranteed fee to get paid. Otherwise, they won't speak, and that's the whole model, how much per hour or how much per gig they get paid. And they're locked onto that. The other model of a speaker is an entrepreneurial speaker. They will speak, but they'll be promoting a product or service, ideally their own product or service or their own company or whatever. And as a result, they will have the potential to earn a lot more. If they perform and are very good, they'll earn a very large income because the audience, and it depends how large the audience is, people will want to have their product or service. So that's the second model. So if you wanted to become a public speaker, they're the two models. Now, some people do both. Some people get paid. For instance, if I very rarely do keynote speaking, but if I do a combination, I will get paid a fee sometimes to be a speaker, an event, a flat fee, but I'm also allowed to promote what I do. And that might be just a soft promotion, so I might give away people a free book or something. So what I call a soft promotion. I'm not actually selling anything, but give the audience something else they can take away with. And as a result of that, they'll find out about what I do at 21st Century and etc. Or sometimes you'll be a keynote speaker where you don't get paid a fee, but you're able to promote your product or service. And the X amount of people out of the audience will participate in that. And so people that are effective at that will earn a lot larger money than keynote speaking. And I know there's some people who teach you how to go to a program and be a keynote speaker and make $1 million a year. The whole goal is to get 100 gigs, 100 speaking events, make $10,000 per event speaking fee 100 times a year, and you make $1 million a year. Okay, who thinks that's a lot of money? And there's people that do that. But that's a lot of work. That's a job, basically. Traveling 100 times a year to different locations, and even getting paid 10 grand to speak for an hour or two sounds like a lot of money, but it's a job. The people that make the most money, the people that have a product or service and are very effective at that, because they can grow their own companies or etc. by speaking, and they can literally make millions and millions of dollars a year if they're very good at it. Okay, but like in any industry, any career, some people are very good at it and some people aren't. The ones that are good at it will be very effective. Or you might want to use your skills, you're not for non-profit. You just want to be able to use your public speaking skills to promote a cause that you believe in, like a charity or something like that. So your goal might be to raise funds, but you still have a goal. It mightn't be to your benefit, but the charity's benefit. But you're still promoting whatever you're doing. You're promoting some idea, concept, etc. So they're the different speaking models. So we are looking at creating a speaking school, which would be a 3-day program. But it's going into more the model of that you would choose and helping people if they want to create a product or service. Or some people have an idea of product or service and how to create that, how to market that, how to package that, and how to develop a career around promoting that and doing that in detail. Then obviously at 21st Century we're always recruiting speakers. We recruit speakers from around the world, or we also develop speakers. Many of the speakers you've seen at 21st Century have been, they were 21st Century members. And they were developed into speakers. People like Jenny Amato, for instance, was a 21st Century member, and she was developed into a speaker. Mark Rolton was a friend of mine that had been very successful in property options. And I said, look, you know what? A lot of people would love to know how you do what you do. Now, a lot of people are very good at what they do, but they don't know how to communicate that to others so people can replicate it. There's many millionaires and billionaires in this country that are very good at what they do, but they wouldn't have a hope in hell at teaching anyone else, because consciously they don't know how they do what they do. They just do it, and it just happens. And but they have to break that down, and there's a system behind that, and put it into a system that other people can go 1 through to 10 step and follow this, and they can replicate the success. So Mark Walton was someone that we developed and made into a public speaker. Andrew Dimitri, some of you know Andrew Dimitri, he was a 21st Century member, and he evolved a particular trading strategy. And then we're able to get him to impart that. And the same process was like to interview him and share the knowledge, and eventually he could do it himself. So often some of the best speakers are not natural public speakers or not trained, so, you know, in a formal sense. They're just people that are passionate about what they do, and they share that. And that comes through, and that's what people want. And they have a certain structure that can fine-tune and improve that. Okay? So the key is being you, and with fine-tuning and promoting what you do, your product or service, but being able to deliver that in a way that people can get value from, whether you're a keynote speaker or promoting your company or product or service, that you can expand. So the value of speaking is that it gives you leverage. If you have to do one-on-one promoting your business one-on-one, you have limited leverage. If you can develop an ability to speak effectively, you could speak to 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people at a time and get massive leverage. Or you can be trained in creating products where you can have DVDs, etc. You can create products in that sense where you don't have to be there, where people, you can get leverage from people being able to use technology, etc. Does that make sense? So we might just, Rob, if we just hand that out, it's a form, they might have it outside. Don't enroll in this yet, just put it, if you're interested in finding out more about that, just put, yeah, I'm interested, and if we set a date for next year, then we'll send you out some more information about that, and then you can find out, look at enrolling if you want to do that at that point in time, okay? Any last questions before we go for a lunch break? It's your last chance. Yeah, we'll start right down the back.
Yeah, g'day Jamie. You're very good at connecting with people. I notice you're scanning the room all the time. Rather than, say, talking at people, to connect with everybody individually, is it just a matter of making sure that you make eye contact with each person?
Yeah, it's a good point. Some people say, do you make eye contact with people? You know, someone like Tony, say Tony Robbins, Tony will actually physically make the effort to look at everyone's eyes in the audience, even 3,000 or 4,000 people. I mean, that's very difficult at everyone, but he'll focus that attention. So for myself, I try and obviously, I love people, so I like to connect with people, but it's good in the audience to connect with people. But what you'll tend to find in larger audiences, they end up connecting with certain people in the audience off stage. So for whatever reason, and you tend to, you'll try and focus not just on the front row, but you'll try and get your focus right to the back of the room. So if you focus on someone in particular, even for a short period of time, you can connect with them. You can also check that they're actually getting it and really getting that message. So I think it is important to have eye contact, and it's important to be sincere. So if you're generally there and want to help people, that will come through. So that's what I think is the most critical. But yes, certainly eye contact is important. Whether you're speaking one-on-one with someone, if someone doesn't give you any eye contact, it doesn't seem right. Well, what are they trying to hide? So looking at people in their eyes is very important. But also what you're doing is you're transcending energy. You're connecting with people. And also it's a good way to make sure people are actually listening. So if someone's not paying full attention, just stare at them for a little bit. Okay? Or if you're talking about a certain third-party story about, some people aren't open-minded, well, they can be skeptical, cynical, you can look right at the particular person or people that you're feeling the energy from where they're not really committed, they're like very skeptical. You just look right at them, and you can really create a state change in them, okay? Because they'll be like, okay, they'll start paying more attention, etc. Give yourselves a big hand. And before I go, I'll just mention those who haven't been to the other days. If you haven't been to all the other seminars that we have, you can order them on Home Study. So these days, obviously being filmed, so this program will be available on Home Study. If you also wish to take it away with you, combined with the program we did 4 years ago, so you can study it over and over again. But there is other programs. The program we're doing tomorrow, some of you are coming tomorrow to the live workshop, is Sales and Marketing program that we're doing. That will also be recorded, so if you can't get to that and you want to combine the sales and marketing training which you, as a speaker, which is very beneficial, then you can order that on Home Study. They'll be available in a couple of weeks. Or the Time Rich program, if you missed that on Saturday, that's available as well. So as a member, most of your 21st Century members, they're $295 each as a member rate, and there's a few other programs on there as well, including the accounting seminar that we did yesterday and also the RPA seminar. So if you want some of those to study at home or continue education, who thinks some of the things we went through today might be a good idea to review a few times? So you're welcome to do that and study that at home.